Welcome to First Draft for the month of May. We are here and going to talk a little bit about finding your own truth in the world of publishing and why maybe you should be breaking all the rules. So first, I'm Julia Kelly, and I would love to have my wonderful co-hosts go around and introduce themselves. Alexis, you want to start us off?
Hi, I'm Alexis Ann. You can find me at Alexis Ann Books, and tonight I am drinking the Big Wave inside of my alma mater, Florida State University koozie. Real classy.
It's themed. I like it.
And I'm Mary Chris Escobar, and tonight I am drinking the Saison du Boeuf, which actually conveniently was what was featured on my blog a couple weeks ago, or last week, because I have a six-pack of it. So, but it's a delicious seasonal summer beer.
Perfect. And I am drinking Negroni, actually, because it doesn't feel like summer right now in New York. It actually was pretty drizzly all day, but it's May 1st, and so I'm going to will it into being, whether it likes it or not. So today we are talking about kind of the maybe some of the pitfalls of listening to just one voice in publishing and maybe not doing some of your research on your own about what career path you might go down and kind of all the different ways that can fall down. And we have some anecdotes from Mary Chris and Alexis about kind of things that they've seen and ways that we hear people talk about the publishing world that we have found to not necessarily be true. So hopefully you can spark a little bit of conversation about kind of how you approach your career and who you should listen to, if you should listen to anybody. So for now we're going to listen to us, and I'm going to actually open it up and ask which of you would like to go first, because I know we did a little bit of talking beforehand, and I think you both have got great stuff to say.
I'll go first.
Great.
So part of the reason for coming up with this topic tonight is it's something that I've really been wanting to talk about because of an experience that I had recently where there was a speaker at an event that I attended, and the speaker was an agent. He represented primarily authors who were writing literary fiction, and it was sort of a one-on-one question and answer with this agent, and it was very much meant to be an educational event for sort of writers at all levels, but I think maybe targeting a newer writer who was thinking about getting an agent, and how do you go about doing that? And at some point during his talk, he, I believe the question that was asked of him is, what is the benefit of having an agent? Which is a pretty common question in today's publishing world, where you hear a lot about indie publishing versus having an agent. And I think the intent of the question was just to sort of give him a chance to talk about the benefits of having an agent and working with an agent. But in answer to that question, he said that if you ever wanted an agent at all, or to go with one of the big traditional publishing houses, that you should never indie publish at all. That you were never going to get an agent, never going to get a deal with one of the big houses if you started by indie publishing. And I sat there in the audience and literally could count, like, on one, possibly two hands, the number of people that I knew that had navigated either a hybrid career where they were sort of simultaneously indie publishing and traditionally publishing, or they had traditionally indie published first and then gotten an agent. So it was really tough to sit there and sort of know that this message was being spoken because it was the person's truth. I mean, I don't think it was this speaker's intent to mislead. I think it was something that he believed to be true, but he was presenting it in a way that was presented as, this is the truth in the world of publishing, and there is no other way to do it. And so I sat there very concerned about that person who was sitting in the audience, who was maybe super new to writing, super new to this idea of publishing, and really wanted to go to traditional and have an agent, and is sitting there thinking, oh no, like, I self-published that little short story or novella and I'm never going to get an agent, which is just resoundingly not true. So it was a tough situation to be in.
I can almost feel all of us kind of cringing at that and just being like, no, that is not true.
Yeah, you sit there and you want to just raise your hand and be like, I'm sorry, can I give you like 5 examples of how that's not true? Like, can I just give you some names to Google later, like after the show? And what was really funny is he at some point went on to talk about, this agent that he really admired, who happened to be one of the agents who someone I know who indie published first signed a traditional 2-book deal with this year. So, it was just tough to sit there and listen to it.
Because there are so many people sitting in the audience who are taking this as fact, and you don't want them to then go about their lives and not know that they're getting bad information, or not bad information, but not the whole picture, and
Right.
They may not go and do their research in other ways.
Sure, it's tough because it's a figure of authority, right? So if you're an unpublished author, if you're an unrepresented author, and an editor or an agent or a published author is telling you this is the way it is, this is the way it's going to be, the way it's always been, which is ironic, of course, as publishing is changing so much and has changed so much in especially the last 10 years. I mean, it's hard not to sit there and wonder if it's just like absolutely crushing people, because first of all, as we've said, that's not necessarily the case, but you're having this figure kind of from on high tell you that this is what you should expect and what you need to do and the path that you need to follow.
Well, I'm realizing even since RWA, the first RWA that we all went to and all met each other 3 years ago now, however long ago that was, the advice in the articles that were coming out then, they're not true anymore necessarily, because the publishing industry has changed so much. So when you're doing your research online, you really do need to pay attention to what date something was published and when people were giving this advice, because what happened 3 years ago or even 2 years ago or a year ago is not going to be true today as the publishing industry continues to change.
Well, and certainly there are also things that happen, like Amazon can drop a big bomb in the middle of everything, which I think was KU, which was that San Antonio that happened, RWA San Antonio. I remember walking into that conference and everybody was just like, well, now I have no idea what to do, because this is a totally unknown factor. So there's also the issue of sometimes things change and nobody knows what's going on because nobody's had experience with it, and you're kind of waiting to see what pops and who seems to figure out whatever method. So certainly there's uncertainty on all sorts of sides, and there's different experience. I mean, my experience with publishing is different than your experience with publishing is different from every single person who's going to be watching this. It's very individualistic, so I think it's hard to generalize and say, this is the way it is.
Absolutely.
So Alexis, Mary Chris mentioned sort of more of the traditional and agented side of it, with agents and editors. On the indie side of publishing, do you see some of these conversations about like you must do X, Y, or Z, or you will never sell X, Y, or Z books?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have another web page up behind my chat with you guys right now. That's the 6 biggest lies in self-publishing that you're told, and it's one of them is what Mary Chris just talked about, that you'll never get an agent. Another is that you spend all your time marketing, and you never actually write. Just all the lists of self-publish. It'll never be quality. You'll never win awards. You can't even submit for awards, which we all know isn't true. But these are the myths that go around, and when people in authority say them, they become fact, even if it's just temporarily. And one of the big ones that I was just talking with someone about was, who do you hire or not hire? Because the myth is that if you do indie publish, you do everything yourself, you're a one-man band. But then once you're inside the world, the myth is actually the exact opposite, which is you have to hire somebody for everything if you want to be considered a professional in the same scale as your traditionally published colleagues. So you have to have 2 or 3 editors that you hire. You have to have a professional cover designer. You have to have this, that, and the other thing. And in this case, we were talking about audiobooks and book covers, because a couple of big authors, their advice to people that day was, if you do your own book cover, you will never, ever be considered professional. If you ever do your own audio, you will never, ever be considered professional. And we could sit there and, like Mary Chris was saying, list 5 people we could think of off the top of our heads where that was so blatantly not the case. Because
with book covers especially, I mean, really,
so
many examples.
So many people come to publishing after another career, and a lot of those careers are in marketing and design, and of course you have the skills to make your own book cover. So to sit there in a conference and have people tell you, no, this is a rule, you cannot make your own book cover, you're sitting there going, no, this is not true.
And I think sometimes these rules come from like something that is true, which is you need to put out a professional and a polished project.
Of course.
You probably need to have someone else look at your book cover, who doesn't know you created it and tell you, if they think it's good or looks like other books. I mean, you need to be objective. So I think a lot of this comes from a truth, like you need to put out a professional product, and then it gets like split down into these little tiny pieces of this, and this must be done. Well, like you said, if you're coming to writing books from a background of graphic design, you probably don't need to hire someone to do your cover. Like,
Right.
that's a ridiculous statement. Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting that oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's business decisions there. You are the one in charge and you are spending the money, so it's kind of stupid to pay someone $200 to make a book cover that you can make just as well on your own if that happens to be your background. So use your brain.
Certainly. And, it's interesting on the traditional side. I know in a lot of the conversation is you must have an agent. And in terms of submitting to certain houses, yeah, they don't accept unsolicited manuscripts. But that doesn't mean that if you want to go traditional, you have to have an agent. And in fact, I would say you should be cautious in researching, looking for an agent, and really looking for somebody who fits with you well. One thing that I think the truth that's at the middle of that is you don't want to go in blind to a book contract. You really do want to, even if you decide not to go with an agent, you want a lawyer or somebody who is familiar with book contracts looking over what you're looking at. If you are an attorney, you probably understand at least basic contract language, even if contracts aren't your thing. So I think that it depends on your skill level. It depends on what you can do, what you can't do. I know at the end of our first draft we talked about whether you should make your own book cover or not. And one of the things that you said, Alexis, and really tried to, I think, drive home is if you don't have the skill to do it, farm it out. If you do, it's worth, saving the amount of money that it would take for you to do your own book cover, then I think that makes a lot of sense. If you want to sit there and you want to learn how to format and you have a talent for those kind of nitty-gritty details, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to do that. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to save that money. But again, it's weighing your personality, your skill set, and also weighing what makes the most sense for you. And of course, you want to have a professional product put out there, but that doesn't mean that you're not also a professional. So.
And that's where it becomes so important to be building a community around you, where I can call you two up and say, so someone just told me that I am not professional because XYZ, and you guys can go, yeah, no, don't listen to crazy person. You have to have people to bounce things off of and get outside of your microcosm.
Exactly, and I think that's where you want those really objective people who will say, I think this is falling a little short. Like, I don't think this is quite the look you're going for in this cover, or oh, like I found a mistake on this page in the formatting. Like, you need those people who will be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, it's about finding those people and running every project through the right people who can tell you those things. And I know when I was designing, when my husband and I in tandem were designing book covers, because I don't do it all myself, that's more his skill set, but when we were designing covers for my books, I actually showed a bartender at one of my favorite local bars, and I didn't tell her it was my book, or actually I think she knew it was my book, but I didn't tell her we had created the cover. I was just like, I'm considering these two covers for my book. Which one do you like better? And she totally picked the cover that I ended up going with, because I knew that she liked to read in the genre that I write, and so I'm like, what? I'm not going to tell her that we created this. I'm going to let her assume I had somebody else do it, and I'm going to let somebody totally anonymously, without feeling like they're going to hurt anyone's feelings, give me an opinion on this. So there's also that, where you can kind of, I don't know, poll your readers or poll the audience. But yeah, I mean, again, at the heart of this is the truth, you need to get feedback, but that doesn't mean that you have to pay someone to do it.
Well, and there's also you just totally made me think of something else that I hear all the time, which is critique groups. People go to critique groups thinking they're doing the right thing to better their writing career and become more professional, but not every critique group is created equally, and so many critique groups are actually going to backfire on you and give you bad advice, even though what you're thinking is you're doing the right thing. So you have to be careful of going to critique groups.
Yeah, I think surrounding yourself with people who, first of all, have your best interests at heart and understand what you're trying to do with your writing, even if that differs then from their writing, I think is important. And it takes time to cultivate those relationships. And I know we've talked on First Draft before about how valuable it is to have people kind of within your writing group. But again, I think none of us would tell you to just go randomly find somebody across on the street. And what you're really looking for is you're looking for a long-term relationship with somebody that you can really trust and kind of have in a advisory role. Maybe is a little too businessy sounding, but it's sort of like that, right? You want somebody who's going to be honest with you. You want to be able to take that criticism and take it graciously, which can be difficult sometimes, I think, too, if you're really asking somebody to be open with you, and they may not tell you what you want to hear, which is actually probably a really positive thing. But I think that the people around you need to be solid and need to be honest and kind of checking off all those boxes. And it's helpful also just having people rooting for you and wanting you to do well and wanting to do well in your career, and who won't tell you, this is the way it has to be in terms of publishing.
And I think that really also made me think a lot of this comes down to bias, and knowing your bias as a critique partner, and knowing like where people might be coming from. And I'll take that back to kind of my first example. That agent who was speaking, as if this was the only true way, again, might be true when you're representing literary fiction. I don't know. I mean, again, I kind of don't think it is, but might be. But he's bringing that bias to the table, and I'm bringing to the table a knowledge of genre fiction and commercial fiction, which is very different. Similarly, I know when I've read things for both of you, I don't read historical romance, and I don't read a lot of like action adventure like Alexis's last book. And so I'll say, here's my critique. You might want to have someone who reads a lot of this genre like critique other areas. Like I can tell you like where I love the story, or maybe where it slowed down for me, or where a character like felt really genuine, or something where dialogue felt a little off. But like I don't read regularly in either of those genres, so there could be nuanced things that I'm not going to catch. And so I think you as an author navigating your career always want to be aware of bias, and then you as an author helping out your friends and colleagues, if you know you have a bias, just show your hand and say like, you know what, this was great. I don't usually read this. So to me, I'm impressed that you put this much research in, or you had this much knowledge of going on an anthropological dig. Like I was just blown away by that. But like someone who reads more of this may or may not. So I think it's just being really honest about those things.
What about sort of the list, going back to the list that you have pulled up right now, Alexis, with what is it, the 6 rules that you should always follow, or lies that you're told, or something like that? What about unsolicited sort of advice that's just out there on the internet, not a face-to-face interaction that you're having with somebody, not a conversation? What about just, I see so many articles about what you should or shouldn't do for marketing, for publishing, for trying to find an agent, for trying to, decide whether your book is going to go into KU or not. How do you cull through that information and figure out what is going to be valuable to you and what is really not?
It's really hard. That's the basic answer. Is it's really, really hard. But to cast your net really wide. The wider you can cast your net, the better. Don't just take one piece of advice, but seek out as much advice as you can. And when something intrigues you or you have a question about it, dig further. The biggest help for me is being a part of some email lists and some Facebook groups that are bunches of authors, and they come to the table with questions all the time. Some of them I'm like, seriously, someone has asked this 12 times. How are we still asking this question? But so many people come with an interesting question. Hey, this just happened in KU. I don't understand it. Hey, Facebook just changed this policy. I don't understand it. Hey, this reader just came back and said, I hate the way that you wrote in third person in this way, and I never even realized I was writing it that way. Where can I go to learn more about that? And find communities of people where you can find that advice. There's so much these days between Twitter and Facebook and email groups and chat rooms. It's a matter of getting in with your genre And it's like following the breadcrumbs, you know. I think that's how I found each and every one of these. Was I went to a conference and got told to join this chat room, and I joined that chat room, and I found out this email list, and I found that email list, and I found this author, and then eventually you get to this place where you have a network of people that you can always turn to, whether it's someone within the genre that I write, or you guys because you're diversified, or this group on Facebook because there's so many brilliant people doing things. I know I have alternative ways to find the information that I need.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, as soon as you say like the things you read online, like the thing that comes to mind is this idea that there's this miraculous number of Facebook followers or Twitter followers that you have to have before you'll either make any money as an indie publisher or B, get an agent, if you're trying to go the traditional way. And it's just, I remember somebody one time came up to me at an in-person event locally, and they were like, I'm really freaked out. Like, I don't have 500 Facebook followers. I'm never going to, I don't remember if it was get an agent or sell any, but I don't remember what it was. But I was like, oh, like, is that the number? Like, I think you're going to be okay. Like maybe focus on building a relationship with those 200 people you do have. I don't know. But that's one of my favorite internet things of like, you have to have this magic number and then you're going to sell. And that's where I think that network of knowing a lot of different authors who are doing things in lots of different ways, or having those organization Facebook groups or chats that you can go to where you're kind of just seeing people doing a lot of different things and different things working for different people. There's just not one right way or one magic number. And I think the more people that are in your network, the more you're going to see that and to know that there's something different for everybody.
I think also, go ahead.
To understand that the industry isn't some virtuous place. I mean, traditional publishers are at war with indie and bookstores, and like there's all this politics going on behind the scenes. So sometimes when you see an article published about only 5 people actually make money on Amazon, or whatever crazy article it is that's come out this week, realize there's a big bias behind that, and sometimes people are pushing an agenda. Because recently it's been a lot of, if you're not one of the top 10 bestsellers on Amazon making $1 million, then you're making $5 a month, and there's no in-between, which, of course, most of us live in the in-between. And your definition of success is going to dramatically vary based on where you live and what your income potential is and what you need to make. So having some articles say that you're not successful or you will never be successful if you're not a #1 bestseller is ridiculous. You have to pay attention to the fact that we're part of a bigger picture here.
Definitely. And I think the other thing I would caution is anytime anybody starts an article with or headlines an article with, this is the way to sell 100 million copies or some absurd whatever, like anytime somebody's promising you something and it's a guarantee, it's bullshit. I'm sorry, just it's bullshit, because the reality is, like we said before, there's so many different paths to publishing, and everybody's path is going to be different. I'm not Alexis, I'm not Mary Chris, and they're not me. We're all coming to this with different backgrounds. We're all writing in different genres. Nothing that they do can I follow in an exact path to replicate their success in exactly the same way. And so I think that you need to remember that anybody who's selling you anything that says this is the way to do it and you will make $1 million in a year, you need to turn around and be like, I think you may have some valuable information, but you are probably lying to my face.
Doesn't it remind you of the 19th century with the snake oil salesman and all the research I used to do on, Udolpho Schnapps Schwartz, they'll cure your period cramps, and it's opium. And like, right.
They're probably selling you whatever it's called, a bill of goods or whatever the old expression is. Like it's just not true, guys. Like anybody who claims to be a guru of something or an expert of something, they may be in their career and they may have some very valuable advice, but if you think that you were going to get the gospel truth out of replicating somebody's career path exactly, I hate to tell you, they came and they did it first, and most likely the game has changed in self-publishing, in traditional publishing, in whatever it is. You need to figure out a way to carve out your own path, and find your own truth, as Mary Chris said earlier. So don't buy into it. Please don't buy it either, like literally buy it.
Yes, you're going to be really disappointed if you buy those Facebook followers and you get to 500 and you're not a bestseller.
Yeah.
It probably isn't going to happen that way. But again, the truth, I feel like, at the bottom of that is you need to connect with your readers. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have
And
to
write
be
good books.
and write good books. Yeah, it doesn't have to be in one particular medium. You don't need a certain number of them. When you have them, you need to connect with them. But yes, you write good. And one way to do that is writing good stories that people are invested in and focusing on that. But right, yeah, there's not a miracle number, and you're not gonna suddenly hit your 501st subscriber and be like, yes, I am now a millionaire. Like, it's just not gonna happen.
No, and also, I think I don't want to tell people to manage their expectations and disappoint people, but like manage your expectations and don't be disappointed, because like if you think you're going to write a book and put it up and in 3 months you're going to be making a gazillion dollars, you may be the 1 in a million or 1 in 100 million or whatever, but it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. And I think that one day we can probably sit down and tell everybody kind of our path to publishing story, but I can tell you it took me 3 years from getting an agent to actually landing a book contract, guys. That is not the path that most people want to take or talk about, and so they don't talk about it, but it's not that unusual. And I think that, figuring out that you are doing it because you love doing it, and you're writing because you have stories to tell, and you're writing good stories consistently, I think that's the really valuable thing. And then setting yourself up in the best way possible so that success can come.
There's no easy fix. You've got to do the work, put in the time, and watch it grow.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And one thing I will say, when you're looking at messages and sort of who to listen to and where you can find some truth, I think so much what Julia said is that it'll be the people who aren't selling you that headline of do this and get lots of followers. I think it'll be the person kind of giving you the message of, here are some things that have worked for people at the basis of this, it's connecting with readers. I think as you connect with other writers and as you maybe join forums online and that kind of thing, you're going to start to see certain names come up over and over and over again of, people who for your genre are sort of those people who are telling some truths. Like here is how to set up a good email marketing mailing list. So you will start to find, I think we don't want to go down this path of saying that there's not sources of good information, because there definitely are. And I think, the way you weed that out, one is by doing lots of research, but also you'll notice patterns of names that'll come up over and over and over again. People will link to articles by the same people. And I think one of the ways that you know that they're quality is they're not going to tell you things like, do this one thing and you'll get, 500 new readers. They're going to say things like, hey, here's something that's worked for other authors, to help them connect with readers. They're going to give you like practical tips.
I also love it when they obviously seem to understand what's going on in the background. It's not just, hey, I became a bestseller with this one book and I think it was because of this. It's, here's how the Amazon algorithms work, and this is what happened at the meeting last month with corporate headquarters, and they actually understand what's happening in the industry, or whatever aspect of it is. It's not just vomiting of information, here, do what I said because it worked for me. It's, here's how the whole big picture works, and that information is coming from some sort of source of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it is just saying, hey, I did this and it worked for me, but they're really, really upfront that like they did that and it worked for them, and they're just sharing it so that if you want to do something similar or take bits and pieces of that, you have the technical knowledge for how to do that. And so I think that's something, and nobody is perfect, but it's something when I'm speaking with newer authors or have a chance to speak at a conference or something, I always try to say, I'm going to share my experience with you. Like, I can't tell you that this is going to be what's definitely going to work for you. Something totally different could work, but I'm going to share my experience. And I think, as authors, that's something important to do when we are sort of giving advice on craft or marketing, or, I'm going to share what worked for me. And I hope that you can glean something from that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on before we kind of start to wrap things up? I know we're going a little shorter than we traditionally do. We're trying to give you guys more information in a shorter amount of time so it's easier to digest.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
Cool. Look at us. All right. So I guess let's go in reverse order this time. Mary Chris, you want to talk to us a little bit about what you've got going on and anything you want to promote?
Sure. Well, I will just send people to my website, which is listed in my little bar down here, marychrisescobar.com. Lots of fun stuff going on there. I do a fun book giveaway one time a month with my Books and Brews series. So if you sign up for my mailing list, you'll get all the details about that. And I'm working on a novel currently, but it is very much in the draft stage, so I don't have a lot to report there. But visit my website. Thanks.
And I'm Alexis Ann. You can visit me at alexisannbooks.com starting Tuesday, not tomorrow, Tuesday when this newsletter goes out with all this information, because we're doing a new format. Yeah. When Lightning Strikes will be on sale for 99 cents for 1 week. And that's in celebration of Never Let Go coming out on May 24th. And it's up for pre-order at iBooks and Kobo if you want to go ahead and get that ordered up now. They're both in the Storm Inside series, so it's a great time to be reading the Storm Inside series.
And it's
very
pretty.
exciting.
It has a pretty new cover.
Yeah, the pretty new covers, which we talked about last time. You guys have to check them out because they're really gorgeous and really big, clean and crisp and beautiful. Love them. I'm Julia Kelly. Really quickly, before I do anything else and before I forget, please go to firstdraftwriting.com to find out more about this show and some links and some show notes about what we talked about today. Also, you can sign up for our newsletter. There will be a link for that on the website as well, so you can get every month, the first Tuesday of the month, a beautiful newsletter to be written by me straight to your inbox on the first Tuesday of the month, and that will get you all hooked up with all the things that are going on with us. So in terms of my stuff, I have paperbacks coming for my books, which I'm really excited about. This actually isn't available yet. This book comes out on June 7th. I have so many release dates in my head right now that I can't remember what's coming when. So this is June 7th. This is called The Wedding Week, and it's a re-release of my novella from the One Week in Hawaii series, from the One Week in Love series. So that's very exciting, and the companion to that will be out in paperback as well. And I have some pre-orders up for my historical romances, which come out in the fall. They are The Governess Was Wicked, The Governess Was Wanton, and The Governess Was Wild. I can't believe I got through that without messing that up. And that's about it right now. So please sign up for the newsletter. Go ahead and check out the website as well. We are really excited to be delivering stuff to you guys directly now. So please go ahead and sign up, and we will be back in June talking about a TBD topic that we will figure out. And if you have any requests, you can go ahead and email those to us as well. So thank you so much, and good luck writing and reading for the month of May. Thanks, guys.